Hi everybody. My name is Nikki Lyons, and I am a life member of Zeta Kappa Chapter at the Unsinkable and Indestructible Albany State University. And I am your moderator for this chapter operations panel. I am here today with Christopher, Sarah, who are both CBAs as well, and with Sierra, who's Southwest District President. And our objective for this panel is to provide you with information that you can use to handle your chapter's logistical business and to do so optimally. So we've got some questions that were submitted prior to today, and we're going to start with those. But we'll also field questions that you have. So if you want, you can drop them in the chat, or you can ask them aloud when we get to the question and answer session. If you have questions, like follow-up questions for some of the topics that we're going to be covering, feel free to ask about those during that portion. So with no questions, comments, or concerns, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So our first question is coming from the topic area of officer transitions. And that question is, how do we ensure our new officers have the information they need to do their jobs? And for that question, let's start off with Chris.
Okay, so when you're running for an office, I think the best thing to do is making sure that you touch base with the current officer and maybe any other members that may have served in that office that are active right now. So in doing that, you create some sort of knowledge database of like things that they worried about throughout the year, projects they worked on, maybe ideas that they thought of but never actually came to fruition. And doing that, having that conversation, you create that foundation of information you need to do your job. So that's one piece. And I'll tag in Sarah if she wants to add some more information.
Sure, absolutely. So this is actually one of the most popular questions that I get as a CBA. Chris is nodding, so I'm assuming that's true for him. Oh, Nikki too. Yep. Absolutely. So yes, that's one of the most popular questions we get. And one of the ways that I prefer for chapters to train their new officers is to actually train their new officers. So to have a meeting with outgoing and incoming exec and maybe discuss the overall goals of the chapter that were fulfilled that year, or maybe some things that are ongoing that still need to carry into the new year. And then also to make sure that each outgoing and incoming officer get a chance to talk and have some accountability to make sure that they do get a chance to talk about specifically what the outgoing officer needs to tell the incoming officer. For example, bank account info and other things like that that need to be known. Or like your outgoing officers may have a copy of the chapter constitution, and maybe your incoming officers definitely need to have that copy. So those are some really important things. Sierra, do you have anything as well?
Yeah, I think also if you can't get in touch with the outgoing officer, try to get into their committee chat and talk to their committee, because then you can see like what have they been working on that whole year. You can look at their past messages and also like hear some of the things that they had suggested that didn't necessarily see like the light of event planning for that office. So you can see like some things that we're working on and that can be pushed into the next year. But also like there's a lot of different groups that we have like through Facebook and things like that that you can get those officers in. Like if you notice they're not in it, like just invite them, share the information, like, hey, I thought you would get some awesome information out of the Overture chat or the For Greater Knowledge group. Like add them to that one. There's also, I know for the Southwest, we have group meetings for most offices. If you notice like they're not in it or like they haven't like talked about group meeting, like talk to the district officer to get them in. And like sometimes, okay, I also just want to say like district officers are not scary. We're just like y'all. We are college students just like y'all. Like I had someone say ma'am in an email and she was like my age. And I'm like, I'm just in the same boat as you, struggling with some ramen noodles on the side. Like, like talk to the district officer to get that information. Like if the person's not comfortable reaching out to the district officer because like, oh, district officer, like do like a communication, like a group communication with them, and be like, just introduce them, build that connection, then just step out of that connection.
I think Sierra brings up a really good point, is that and Sierra, if I cut you off, please let me know. But your district officers, that might be even before you even talk to old officers, is you communicate with them and say, what's the best things I need to know to be chapter president or chapter historian or something like that? They may already have that information ready to give to you. And similarly, your CVAs are not that much older, even if they are that much older, you don't have to call me Mr. Lukasik or anything like that. You can call me Chris. It is not a problem. Even if you're trying to, stay respectful or whatnot, I'm Chris, not Mr. Lukasik.
Yes, Miss Lyons was my mama.
Also, you can just genuinely ask people like how they feel in that position as well. But also like if you're the officer and you don't feel like you have enough information, like don't be afraid to speak up that you don't feel equipped for that position. Like you don't have all the information. Like I've gone into like my first officer meeting when I first became recording secretary of my chapter. We sat into the meeting and the only person that had been on e-board before was the president, and we're like, what do we do? Like we've never been in this situation. And I've also been the president and sat in an e-board meeting, like ready to go. And some people are like, yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like, all right, let's start with that. Like,
and Sarah, I think that transitions to our next, Sarah, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I was going to say that was transitioning to our second question, like perfectly. But if you've got something, please enlighten us.
You know what? Yeah, ask the next question because I got something for that.
Okay, all right. So that next question is, how can we teach chapter members about and prepare them for leadership positions within our chapter? Sarah, go ahead and start us off.
So my favorite document in the whole world, okay, for TBS at least, is the chapter operations handbook. I love that thing. It is beautiful. Okay, so it's huge. You can literally Google it. You can Google Tau Beta Sigma chapter operations handbook, and that thing will pop up on the internet. Okay. You can also search it instead of reading through the whole dang thing. So what I do in literally chapter visits, I will pull it up and look through it for an answer to a question that I have. And I do like Control F on my computer. If you're not a Mac person, if you're a Mac person, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And you can search a keyword or like treasurer, and then it'll pop up with the treasurer's job description, and it'll have excerpts from the National Constitution. And then it'll tell you also that you need to look at your chapter's constitution to see what your job duties are. So that's a really valuable resource, and I cannot sing its praises enough. That thing is awesome. Definitely use it, please. Stepping off my soapbox.
It's a great soapbox to be on.
Oh, yes. I've read that document so many times. I have pulled it up so many times. I think my phone is tired of me pulling it up.
Sometimes if I have multiple visits, I'll just keep it up on my computer.
Especially for a president position, whether that be chapter president or district president or even national president, like that's the document for a president. Or anyone that may want to be president, or anyone I'd like to call myself a meeting nerd, that like my favorite part of being in the organization was being at chapter meetings. That's the document.
Can I answer the question in regards to my own chapter?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how many other chapters do this, or if this is even just like a regular thing that chapters do, but my chapter, we create officer records. And we basically, all the information that an officer needs, they put in the binder and then pass it to the next incoming officer when it's time for, transitions. So that's the easiest way that we do transitions, because you can get it straight from the person who's in your position last year.
Yes, that's exactly what we did, ZK. Each officer had their own notebook, and you filled it up with everything they needed to know. And then we would have kind of like little exit meetings. So right as we've had elections, now you're newly installed officer, here's the things you need to know. And so we made sure we had those conversations. And for those of you who keep digital documents, like if you've got like a Google Drive folder where everything that your chapter needs is there, same thing. When you pass that along, have that conversation with the newly installed officer to kind of get them started. It is so helpful. It is so helpful. In the big world of corporate things, they call it succession planning. So kind of think about what's coming next and how you can prepare them for that.
Also with the emails, if you do like digital, like especially through like Google, I would have it linked all into like one chapter, like your official account, because you can get someone to reset that password in case like some transition doesn't happen and the person that's graduating doesn't pass all passwords. You still have a way to reset that information and get into it, so it's not just lost.
Also, this is just a suggestion. We do anything online, we always keep a paper copy. That's just something that like I learned. Anything that you have digital, keep a paper copy. Even if you never use your paper copy, if something happens to that digital file, it's just gone. And then you'll have a backup. So
yeah,
keep paper copies. Have like
that brings up a good point, because with the binders, it is possible for that binder to get lost. In fact, I've had 4 people talk to me about that this year from different chapters, where the binder is just gone and they have no idea where it is. So it's not, I would highly recommend either making a copy once y'all get back to school and you have access to your library that has a scanner, like maybe scanning in some of those older historical documents from your binder onto the chapter's Google Drive, and then you have a record of those documents if the binder does get lost. Because yes, it's wonderful to have that paper copy and a digital copy.
Also, kind of just going back to the question we had, like just teaching your chapter members about leadership positions. I always stress work in your committees and be committed to your committees. Like the committee work in there is like some of the best ways to learn about each individual position and what they're doing and the steps it takes to get that position done. And so actually be engaged with your committees. Like even if you're not in a committee and you just want to know about, find out when they're meeting and just join their meeting. Like I know one sister, she's actually in this chat for Ada Pi. Like she just goes to different committee meetings because she just wants to know more about what that position is doing. And it learns more about how the chapter operates, and you see it's so much played out in the chapter meeting. So you don't have as many questions as well in the chapter meeting, and you have more understanding. And honestly, you honestly have more respect for that person in the position.
One thing I've heard of chapters doing is when nominations happen, everybody gets nominated and whatnot, and then the officer then brings those people that were nominated for that office into like a little conversation to like basically teach about their job. Like maybe everybody knows what the VPM does, but the VPM still has that formal conversation of, this is my job, these are the things that I worry about day to day or week to week. So everybody that's running for the day of elections has that equal understanding about what the job is.
It's personally a huge concern to me when somebody runs for an office like president and they don't know that the president fills out paperwork or talks to the band director and keeps up communication with the sponsor. Like those are huge parts of the president's position that do not happen in front of everybody else. Or, yeah, we'll get to the paperwork thing later, but that's a huge deal. And so it's really important to have those conversations with your officers beforehand, before you even run for a position. But it's also important for the officers to share what they are doing throughout the year, in addition to having that specific conversation.
I would say that paperwork is actually, and we're actually about to go into paperwork, but
go for it.
Paperwork is the foundation of keeping your chapter active and in good standing with the organization. So if there's problems with your paperwork and getting your paperwork in on time, there's bigger conversations that need to happen to reset your chapter to get back in good standing.
Also, when you do good paperwork, that's also a great way to keep remembering like what your chapter is doing and to keep building on that, because you're actually reporting all the stuff you're doing through the paperwork that you're supposed to fill out as a chapter. You also have that electronic copy through there because you can see your past paperwork submission for your chapter through OMRS.
Right. And I always, if you've been on a visit with me, we do paperwork exercises, and I always tell people your responses to your paperwork should not be 2 sentences long. You should actually be aiming for 2 paragraphs long to give as much information as possible. So, for example, in 2 years, when you get visited again, the CVAs know what to work on, and the National Council knows what's going on the local level. Like, your paperwork needs to be, I don't want to say good, but well thought out and well detailed.
Be a little extra when you're filling it out. You're kind of bragging on what your chapter did throughout the year, and Nationals wants to see what you've been doing and how great things have been going, and like also to know what they can help you with. And then also, it's kind of a, well, not kind of, it is your chapter's history. I mean, national headquarters can hold on to that information for you. And then in like 30 years, like you're like, okay, well, you know, I have a kid that's going to this university or wants to be in TBS, you know, let's go look and see what our records were. Like maybe they'll have that record for future generations to look back on and to see like what TBS was like back now. So it's kind of cool.
Well, let me ask this, panelists. Let me ask you this. How soon should we get started on our paper? Like, I mean, you know,
Today?
You say it. Oh, today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would
Or
say
tomorrow.
before
Tomorrow's okay.
Hmm.
Let's see. Who knows what is due on June 1st? Victoria?
Oh, Victoria's hand is up. Mhm.
Where'd Victoria go?
Where is she? Oh, she's right there. Okay.
Yeah. So
What's
it's
due?
it's the chapter summary report.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome. So like when should that be done for your sponsor to look at?
Usually I aim for about May 8th is our last day of classes, and I know that they can review it dead day, so I aim for it last day of classes, and they can review it dead day, and it's usually submitted the next day.
That is so considerate and a beautiful thing to hear, because your professors are really busy too. And I know it's like, I mean, yeah, we're about to go into finals week and that really sucks. But also like if you're starting on it now and you've broken your, can I dive into the next question?
I feel like they're flowing. This is a natural flowing conversation. Let's go.
Awesome. Yay. Okay. So here's my favorite thing to say to chapters. Your president should not be doing all your paperwork, especially not the chapter summary report. Your president isn't going to know every single detail that goes on that dang report. So break it out into the sections that it already is in, put it in a Google Doc, and then have each officer fill out their appropriate portion. And so then you can easily have that report done by like May 8th or your dead day. Submit it to your sponsor. Your sponsor and your director of bands have time to actually look over it, maybe ask questions or remind you of something great you did to add to the report. And then it's suddenly turned in before June 1st. And you can ignore all those counselor messages on Facebook that say, hey, turn in your paperwork.
I always say that starting it probably like a month before the semester even ends. So your fall activity report is due December 1st, which is usually either right after the fall semester ends or right before it ends. So starting it a month early, November 1st, getting it, done by November 15th, gives that a lot of time for the sponsor and DOB to check it over, give it back to you in case there's edits that need to be made. And then similarly for the chapter summary report, a month before the semester ends, even though it's June 1st, a month before the semester ends, April or so to start it.
But also, like, you can start the paperwork at the beginning of the semester. Like, I know, just to brag on being new, they do a form submission for every event that they do. And so it keeps track for the whole semester. And so all they literally have to do at the end of the semester, do paperwork, is literally just copy and paste. So doing things like that allows you to keep track so you don't not scratching your head at the end of the semester, like what did we actually do this semester? Like I know we've done things, but what have we actually done? Like keeping track of that from the start of the semester is the best way to keep track.
When committee chairs are having meetings, or you've completed an event, you've completed a project, just a quick write-up that's added to that doc then saves you time from at the end, like, oh, Chris said we need to try to get through 2 paragraphs. I don't know if I can muster up 2 paragraphs. Well, guess what? You already have them. So that just saves you a little work. And I am a proud member of Procrastinators Anonymous. I'm going to tell you, I'm no longer anonymous. We love to do that. But if you just go ahead and do it now, it saves so much time. And you don't have your president and your secretary and your recording secretary running around trying to figure out what things are to get them done. No, friend, don't do it to yourself. Just take those little bits of time throughout the semester and it saves so much energy. So much.
Yeah. And when you keep your paperwork on time consistently as a chapter, you're eligible for awards. Your chapter is functioning, and we know if you're we know that you are either well on your way to being a healthy chapter or that you are a healthy chapter. And we're harping on this because like some chapters just don't do their paperwork on time, and we want you to succeed. Please succeed.
And we're going to get into events and whatnot, but I like to always say if you have a chapter calendar, you should put the date you want to start paperwork into your chapter calendar. Just a start chapter summary report, or start fall activity report, or start chapter personnel report, all of that. Put those like benchmarks in to keep you on your toes.
Also, you can do additional forms to help with like the chapter personnel report. I did a form for the chapter to send in to also put their graduation date, to put their status that they're trying to go for in the fall. So I already know this information before I have to fill it out. And so it's not like going, so when do you graduate? So when do you graduate? Like you have it all just there for you. Google Forms are the best. Just saying, Google Forms.
A very healthy addiction. That's also another thing that should be filled out this spring is a graduating seniors report. If you don't fill that out, the statuses get all wonky and onerous, and you might be holding somebody back from successfully and efficiently becoming a part of the Alumni Association later on. So please fill out your graduating seniors report. It is super easy, I promise you. And like use a Google form like Sierra said, and you'll be able to get this like whoever's graduating really quick from your chapter.
Also for any outgoing or incoming like presidents, like talk to each other, especially like if your chapter is in a state where it's like right now the paperwork is sadly getting pushed on to just the president. Like help each other complete the paperwork, and especially if you're outgoing, don't leave it for the incoming, because that sucks. It happened to me and I was very upset when it happened. So talk to the president that's outgoing, like get the information needed. And they also, if you're having trouble like working OMRS, they've had to do paperwork all this year, so they're some of the best people just in-house to talk about how to work OMRS.
And just a segue into like if there's actual technical issues getting into OMRS, then you tag in national headquarters, because we employ staff to oversee that program. And if you have like my password's not working, or like when I click this it creates an error message, that's when you need to ask for help and not just let it fester.
Speaking of things getting error messages, lost, how could I prevent my dues or my signatures from getting lost?
Ooh, my favorite. There's this beautiful thing called certified mail. It's gorgeous. Okay, so it's a little tiny bit more expensive than a stamp. It is not a FedEx because that's expensive. We don't need that. But certified mail, you go to the post office, you ask for certified mail, and then they make sure that somebody signs it whenever it gets to headquarters. Okay, and then you have a record of it being sent that you can provide to headquarters if something gets lost so that you're not charged late fees. And you also have an email in your inbox when headquarters receives it, so you know they received it. It's beautiful.
You're usually given a tracking number as well.
Ooh, yeah, that too. There's multiple ways for you to know that that is sent and that to prove to headquarters that you sent it as well.
And when you get that tracking number, you can write it in a comment on that form on OMRS. So not just one person has that tracking number, it's formally in the system. So everybody can watch that paperwork get to headquarters.
Yep. I love how we're nerding out about this.
Again, meeting nerd. Love this stuff.
We just like chapter operations.
We do.
But really, though, it'll save you a huge headache.
Write these names down. Write these names down.
Yeah.
Take a little screenshot so you see what the face looks like, so you know.
You know things. I promise. Yeah. No, but really, use certified mail. It's way cheaper than like FedExing something or UPSing it or whatever.
Right.
Also, now you can pay dues online as well. So you can also have that, like, the information, like the payment information there as well.
Yeah.
So you can print that out and have a physical copy, like, this was paid on this date and this time. But also, if you pay
Absolutely.
online, actually, if you pay for anything, make sure you check with your bank the limit that you can spend per day, because some checks get sent back to chapters because their bank has a certain amount you can only spend per day or on checks. So like, be very mindful of that and check with the bank to make sure that you can do it, because you can also like talk to headquarters and split the payments if you have to.
Yeah. So you always want to pay your dues in the fall. Wait, like probably about a week at least before they're due. And then it also really helps because well, this is a weird summer, but hopefully your students, your sisters are going to have summer jobs. Please, Rona, go away. And so it helps to warn them like, hey, your $105 dues are due on this date of the chapter. And you set that due date to be well before the actual due date to nationals. And then you have the opportunity to make sure that your payment goes through before it's actually due.
And Sarah brings up a really good point. We hear a lot about, well, we're on a payment plan and the payment plan ends after we have to submit dues. No, you have to have the payment plan end before you send the check. So if you collect all the money for September 1st, your payment plan should start in July and end in September, not starting in September and ending in November.
This is how chapters end up in debt.
Right.
With a negative bank account and late fees. And we don't want that to happen to you. Sorry, very serious, but it happens and we just don't want y'all to fall into that situation. And
it calls into question, like, are you actually like a full member if you haven't fully paid your dues before business starts? So you have to be financial before your first meeting to be able to be a full active member. And if you're still paying into November or December, that calls into question if you're actually financial.
Madison, I see your hands raised. You have a question?
Hi. Hi, I'm actually Harrison. I'm here with Madison here.
Hi, Madison Harrison.
I work at the headquarters as one of the interns there, and I just wanted to say, please do not send cash in the mail. I can't tell you how many times we see people do that, and something happens, and then some of the cash goes missing, and then there's no trace of it. Please send either money orders or checks.
Yes. Thank you, Harrison.
Even if you're sending it certified and you have that tracking number, do not send cash.
The only
No.
people who should be sending cash in the mail are grandmothers who are sending you $5 for your birthday. If you are not
Absolutely.
a grandmother and you're not sending $5 for a birthday, you do not send cash in the mail.
Heck, even my grandma knows to send a check.
Maybe, I'm going to write that quote down, by the way.
That's amazing. Yeah, we're stealing that for all the chapter visits.
Mhm.
Also,
Please
if
do.
you're sending your stuff through regular mail, when the due date is not when you drop it in the mailbox, it's when it's postmarked. So make sure that when you're putting it in the mail, it's going to get postmarked on the right date. Because just because you dropped in the mail on the due date does not mean that you're going to get the stamp of approval. You're going to get hit with the late fee because it was not postmarked on that day.
Right.
Oh, I have another soapbox. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had so many before this chat. If you are in this call or in your chapter or a member, you are important and you have a right to ask when the check will be sent to national headquarters. You have a right, you have a responsibility to your chapter to ask your exec, like, okay, yeah, who's sending out the check? Like, when's it going? How is this working? Like, is there anything I can do to help? You are important. You matter. Please participate in this process and just like make sure that it gets done, because you don't want your chapter to be hit with late fees, and it is your responsibility as well.
Right. And
Also, sorry.
go ahead, Sierra.
Also, you can view your chapter's paperwork. So even if it's not a dues related paperwork, you can still check on your reports ongoing. So you can see when it's in draft mode. You can see when it's been submitted. So you can keep track of like, hey, we are not in draft mode yet. So like, what's going on? Like, who's helping with the paperwork? Like, you all have access to see your chapter's paperwork. So take advantage of that. Because sometimes we accidentally just put it all in the president, but there are also full-time students, just as you, who may just need some help time to time. Ask them. See if they need help.
There are definitely parts of that paperwork you can fill out as well as an active member, because you will remember things that we did throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can definitely help out with that paperwork, and just ask your president, ask your VP, whoever it is, kind of taking the lead on the chapter summary report and help out.
Actually, I am going to skip down to, because you're talking about how everyone's busy, everyone has a lot going on. So I kind of want to touch on how early should chapters start planning events?
I'll jump in. So throughout the year, we always have those like, I don't want to call them emergency events, but unexpected events to do like a quick service project here or whatnot. So we're not going to talk about those types of events because those kind of get thrown together really quick. But the ones that you can definitely plan for: rituals, your chapter meetings, your yearly big service projects. I always say plan it in the preceding semester. So everybody enters the semester with an understanding about what their time commitment's going to be. And then, after classes settle and people like do the add drop period, you can make minor adjustments to like shift it from a Thursday to a Friday, but you're not spending hours upon hours in that semester you're already in planning for next month and whatnot. You're planning kind of 6 months ahead. 6, 3, 4, whatever it is. If it's the fall into the spring, it's usually 2 or whatnot. And I'm talking semester systems because that's what I've experienced as a college student. Similarly, in the quarter system, plan in the preceding quarter.
I always tell people when I'm doing like workshops on like event planning, like you always have to give your event enough time to be a thing, but also have to give yourself enough time. So like doing the semester is magnificent, because then you can take a breather, because you don't want to be hardcore into the event and then you just don't get to even enjoy the event itself because you're burnt out at the end because you have to keep rushing to get everything done because it wasn't planned out that well.
So theoretically, on some events that you do, if you know absolutely that there's this like 4 events that happen that are pretty traditional throughout your year, if you're like VPSP or something, you could have your online meetings in Zoom and brainstorm things for those things. You can be planning kind of over the summer if you want, because everybody's going to be missing each other even more this particular semester because you didn't get to go back after spring break or during spring break or whatever that was, that weird time. And so you can kind of use that nostalgia and the weird feeling everybody has to plan for the future of your chapter, and to be planning things for this coming semester, and to kind of use that momentum and go into your next semester well prepared. And then you've saved some time later on. Like for example, if I know that I'm going to need, if I'm going to need everybody to sign up for a potluck, I can go ahead and create a Google form for a Halloween potluck that has like, okay, name and email and their phone number and then what they're actually going to bring, so that everybody signs up and I can, make sure that we have a decent amount of food or whatever for that. So I can go ahead and create that Google form, even though that event's not going to happen until October. So there are things you can do to prepare in this time, even though you're separate.
And share those results with the people filling out the form so that they can remember, oh, I did say I was bringing mac and cheese. Okay.
Which the form shouldn't be sent out till like September. Yeah, September. Or like October sometime or something. But yeah, you can still do it.
It is always spooky season, so it's never too late to talk about Halloween.
I love that.
It's never too early to talk about Halloween. But also, like, don't ever like the excuse of like, oh, we're just waiting until like the music department calendar to come out or like the band calendar come out, because the big components of the event can still be planned. You can push around different dates. Like the components of the event is not going to change because of a day or event that you have to move it around. So like don't. Because I know, like, my chapter, we try to wait, like, oh, we just wait until the Kappa calendar comes out. The Kappa calendar comes out literally, like, almost a week before the semester starts. Don't wait until the week before the semester starts. Like, start planning out the big parts of it now. So then all you have to come in is like, okay, so now you can even come up with tentative dates. So, like, these dates work, that date works. So when you look at that calendar, it's like, okay, well, there's a performance here, so we can't do that date. You have backup dates already. So don't let that calendar stops you from planning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can still use the academic calendar in the meantime to come up with those dates and backup dates too.
Ariana from Theta Rho, you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to add that a better, like a good way to plan for events is to have your committee chairs meet over the summer. Like I'm an outgoing president, and what I did was, the way Theta Rho operates is we complete our calendars ahead of time, because we know like fall for us at BCU is busy, and the Marching Wildcats we're always traveling. So we have committee chairs basically make tentative calendars like service. Check the like we'll check a Saturday where we won't have any away games or home games, and those Saturdays will be the Saturdays where service can complete a world cleanup, like social can do something for the band on the band field. So we try to we correlate with the marching calendar. So if we don't have a game that weekend, we take use of that. If we get out of practice early, usually we practice from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. If we get out of practice early, let's say we do a 6 to 7:30, we would take that time where we will have, and we'll try to have like an event like Ways and Means could probably do a fundraiser, like stuff like that. So my idea to presidents is to, when you make them, I'm not sure how you guys chapter may operate, but when you appoint those positions, take those and make your committee chairs have meetings over the summer. Not every week, because that's our break, but maybe 2 times a month to start planning, like try to get your marching schedule or your band schedule and try to make them go off of that. So that way you're not running events into weekends or you're not colliding with other things. So that's just like a take that we do, and it always works. And just in case something might pop on the schedule, we have room to like move this event. So that's one thing that the presidents that you guys can do.
And also, like with that, if some of your committee chairs are starting to have like the similar date that they want, look at some way you can incorporate that event into like one thing. Like we wanted a service project and a recruitment event on the same day. We had the service event as a part of the recruitment event, and it's just an easy way to not let positions like fight over days and things like that, and also incorporate all aspects of our sisterhood.
Then you end up splitting the work too.
Yeah. Even had more people helping because then you had all the interested people. So you get to see what you're doing.
So I think what everybody's kind of alluding to is that there are some events that need that future planning or that extra time to plan and sometimes to advertise. For example, if you have a service and recruitment event, or if you have a women in music speaker, you want to have time to advertise those so people will come and people can plan around that.
Thinking about the unique situation that we're all finding ourselves in right now, a question that I had when I was doing a virtual visit with the chapter was around the fact that some of their chapter members were discouraged because they worked really hard and planned some events, some great events for the spring, and then they had to cancel them. And so the e-board noticed that there's kind of been a drop in motivation for trying to plan things for the fall. So what are some things that you all would suggest that chapters do to kind of bring that motivation back up when the chapter's a little hesitant, knowing that, you know, for some schools, there's a bubble right now about whether or not they'll have classes in the fall?
I think one of the things like I've heard that like really took me to heart was like, you're kind of just borrowing this chapter for the time that you're active and you're kind of just giving it back when you're done. So even if these events aren't going to happen, you're laying that foundation for future sisters of your chapter to come in and help see that event come to life. Because like even if you don't fully get to see that inward, you still get to say you're a part of that foundation to help get that done. And it's about leaving like your legacy and your little bit of yourself in your chapter. So like even because like I know like there's some cool things in like the chapter I really wanted to see this semester, and I'm graduating, so I don't get to see it, but hopefully as an alumni I get to see it. But like I know that I got to help build that foundation and spark those ideas for the chapter.
As alumni, it is a beautiful thing to see that in your chapter and then also in other chapters, especially if someday you want to be like a CBA or something. You get to see so many chapters, you see so many amazing things. And you know, we're talking about like all these questions we get, but it really is a beautiful thing to see when y'all get together and share ideas with one another. The excitement really grows. And I just want you to know, like, this mess, this coronavirus junk is not going to last forever. And it really sucks right now, but it's not going to last forever. I would encourage you to do the work that you can do on projects and events and planning that you can do for the future, but without an exact date in mind. Like, do the work you can do and then move on to the next like planning phase and save the work so that if somebody does have to take it over, you can pass that on to them with preparation done as much as you can.
I want to take what Sarah said, where it's not going to be permanent and this is not forever, but I need to put a realist twist on it, that it is possible that we will not be going back in the fall, which is horrible. However, just in watching what comes in through the health and safety team email address, by the way, just side note, if there's any updates with your university, please email us at healthandsafety@tbsigma.org, and I'll put it in the chat. But I think people in our chapters need to be prepared for the fact that we may not be going back in the fall. and that we'll be having virtual instruction in the fall. And finding ways to make some of those events, Women in Music speaker, for example, we had a wonderful Women in Music speaker yesterday virtually. We need to be earmarking some of those events that can be virtual and still having those events and still being as involved as we can virtually. But keep in mind, Sarah's right. This is not permanent. This is not forever. It sucks. It's horrible, but it's not forever.
You can also kind of steal virtual social ideas from like your district's alumni associations. They were doing some virtual like fun events with one another for conventions. So if that's something you're if you're interested in getting some of those ideas, feel free to like contact your district president or like your counselors or whatever, and they should know about like some of the ideas that have been put into place already from like the alumni associations. I know for Southwest we've done like we're doing a count it like step tracking thing that works with all fitness trackers and like competing with one another to see who is the most fit, and I'm losing so badly. And then there's like a Netflix watch party thing. And then we've done a bunch of Zoom calls and whatnot too with one another. So there are ways to plan virtual events as well if you want to do that over the summer and see what works for y'all. That's also an option.
And all of those things that are social based, you can invite them to the band. You can make those invitations open to the band, and then it becomes service. Because you're still providing that meaningful and worthwhile social experience to all engaged in collegiate band work.
Okay, well let me ask this. All right, so we're back in the fall, right? Everything's, and we want to plan some events. Can we have some events off campus? Or,
That's going to first and foremost depend on your school and their rules about registered student organizations or whatever office is over your organization. So, and of course, based on pandemic rules too, depending on whatever's happening then. We don't know, it's a whole new world. So like whatever, like if your school has rules that, your student organization cannot, then you cannot. If your school has rules that, yeah, they can, but there's like these certain rules, then they're probably pretty similar to TBS's, but also please review them and make sure that your event does not violate those university rules.
I would say that the best mentality to have is no off-campus events, and 100% absolutely no events in private residences. That is just inappropriate to be having events in, and private residence include dorm rooms. I think it needs to be in all publicly accessible locations, whether that be an academic building or the band room or something like that. No sort of private residence, no apartments, no dorm rooms, nothing like that. If you are thinking of doing an off-campus event, you should tag in someone on the national leadership team just to have another set of eyes on what the event's going to do, the purpose and all of that, and make sure that it's aligned with everything the sorority mandates when it comes to those types of events.
Also, you can, if you can't go off campus, just look at some of the facilities and setups and like spaces you have on your campus and see if you could bring that activity to the campus. Because like you're probably the people that do a lot of like event planning for the university have brought some crazy and wild things to the university. So it shows that different activities can take place on campus and you don't have to travel. So just maybe looking into those options, you can't travel off campus.
Yeah, some schools have even done like a video game competition or just a video game night in the band hall and invited the entire band. And so that way it was kind of a service as well, because they it was kind of a night for the band to blow off steam, eat some snacks, play some video games, trash talk one another while they're playing Mario Kart, good stuff. So those things can still be done on campus too.
All right, all right. Well, y'all talking about rules and stuff. Before we open this here for Q&A, I've got one more question, and it's about my good friend Robert and his rules. So what are some fun and effective ways, right, that I can familiarize my chapter with Robert's Rules of Order? And like, are there any important points that you feel like I should hit? Like, make sure I tell the people about this.
So my chapter, we typically do a mock meeting. And so like it's some like a wild scenario that happened. Like one time someone was like busted for trying to take money to buy like some food and stuff like that. And so it was like situations like that. So it's just wild scenarios to still have fun, but also learn about Robert Rules of Order. Also, there's different games you can do. Like there's making the trail mix with your chapter. So then you get a cool little snack afterwards. And then you can do like, I have done Quizlet, especially like one of the chapter visits, like we did a Quizlet and it had like different like motions you can make in a meeting. And like we're all like learning it and like competing against each other to see like who knows it like the best. And so like for me, like anything competitive wise, I get very hyped on it and I learn it well. But like also like knowing that you don't have to like completely reboot your chapter in one go on Robert Rules of Order, like especially if y'all haven't done a lot and very lax on a lot of it. Like implement like one thing like each chapter meeting. Like you don't have to go all in. Like take it step by step so you can know it and actually implement it more.
I'm just going to be frank. I'm not the best person to answer this question because I love meetings. So that's the best way in my opinion. But actually, as I say that, I've heard of chapters that do basically like stop and go meetings, that like one of their sets of meetings, you know, you add on like another half an hour so you can stop and like explain, you know, what's a motion and why does the president need to ask for abstentions and anybody opposed and all of that. Like that, I think that's an effective way to help everybody have an equal understanding of Robert's rules.
I've done like a cheat sheet that has like the way like the exact order of how our meeting is going and like why we do each thing, or like if we make the motion to like dismiss reading minutes, like what happens during that part, what happens if it doesn't, like how to vote and things like that. And like I especially do it for the new members, especially when it's that first meeting, so they can still, and like it's still available for like any actors that they want it.
Yeah, absolutely. We also used to do, and this is actually something that happened in my own chapter. Most of the examples I've used today have not been from them. But we used to do a Robert's Rule of the Week and also a bylaw of the week. And so, like, for example, around the time that dues were due, we would share the bylaw from the National Constitution that requires dues to be paid. And so that would be the bylaw of the week. And then we would share a Robert's Rule of the Week. And it would be something usually that the parliamentarian wanted to share and saw a lack of. And so that way it was a forum for it was a spot for the parliamentarian to share, hey, like I've noticed we don't do this and I think we should. Here's your warning. We're going to enforce this starting next week. So that was kind of a good thing. And we got to learn more each week, but in snippets, not too much at a time.
And one thing, and I'm going to put on my instructor hat here, but one thing you can do is break the rules up into chunks and then assign different groups of people to learn and know a specific set of the rules. And then what you do is you switch it up, you change up the members of the groups, and they're responsible for teaching each other about the specific ones they've learned. And so at that point, you've got different people who know certain things. So if one person's incorrect, another person can check and say, you remember we talked about this, that, and other. And so then you've got more chapter members who are involved, engaged, and feel responsible for knowing how your meeting should flow in a logical way. Okay. So questions, comments, concerns, don't be shy. Ask us. I shall start asking.
Oh, also something that somebody messaged me that's a great reminder while we're waiting on questions is that students should not sign any contracts on behalf of Tau Beta Sigma with companies or for off-campus events or anything without their director of bands and or sponsor approval. That is very important. Any burning questions? Or little questions, either one.
Hello, I have a question.
Hi.
Hi, Christina.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the after an event form that you can have the committee head or someone fill out? Because we don't do that, but I feel like that's something that would be very helpful for next year.
Yeah, so one thing that I think our secretary does it, or the way I also like to see forms is kind of like the action plan kind of setup. So it has all of the information of what happens, why did the event take place, what date did it take place, who helped with what were the kind of timeline to get everything done, and kind of give that explanation of what all happened. And also with that you can do feedback, and so kind of just what worked, what didn't work as well.
So Christina, have you ever used Google Forms before?
Yes, we use it for
Okay.
a lot of different things.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's the platform that Sarah was talking about. And then you can export all the responses into a Google Sheet.
Mhm.
And so that way it's easy to copy and paste into your report.
Okay.
I think that's
Thank you.
what they do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, if we don't have any more, please, 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 I can't emphasize this enough, do not hesitate to reach out to your district officers. Don't hesitate to reach out to your CBAs. This is what we are here for. This is what we do. All of our email addresses are in district sites, or they're on the national website. We are ready and willing to help, so don't be afraid. We do not bite. We want to help you all be successful as active members of your chapters.